The words hit me like a slap across the face. You're too irresponsible to ever own a home. My mother stood in the middle of my aunt's living room, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear. Thanksgiving dinner had just ended. Family members froze mid-conversation, their eyes darting between us. I felt my face burn with humiliation. "Mom, that's not fair," I said quietly, trying to keep my voice steady. "Not fair." She laughed, but there was no warmth in it. "You can barely manage your own life. How could you possibly handle a mortgage?" My stepfather, Kenneth, leaned back in his chair with a satisfied smirk. He crossed his arms like he was watching his favorite show. "Your mother's right," he said. "Look at your track record. You lost that job 3 years ago. You had to move back home twice. You've never saved anything in your life." Each word felt like a knife. My younger cousin stared at her plate. My aunt busied herself clearing dishes. Nobody defended me. Nobody said a word. "I've been working really hard," I managed to say. "Hard?" My mother scoffed. "You don't even understand what hard work means." Then she said something that made my blood run cold. "That's why I've made a decision about you." My mother pulled out her phone and began scrolling through something official-looking. "I'm removing you as my emergency contact," she announced. "Kenneth will handle everything from now on." The room went silent. "What?" I whispered. "You heard me. Medical decisions, financial matters, everything. I can't trust you with important responsibilities." She looked at Kenneth. "You're the only responsible adult I can count on." Kenneth's smirk widened. "Happy to help, Claire. You know I'll always do what's best." I stood there, unable to move or speak. My own mother was publicly declaring I couldn't be trusted. In front of everyone who mattered to me. "Mom, please don't do this," I said, my voice cracking. "It's already done. I signed the papers this morning." She tucked her phone away. "Maybe this will motivate you to finally grow up." Kenneth stood and patted my shoulder in a way that felt more like ownership than comfort. "Don't take it personally. Some people just aren't cut out for responsibility." My aunt finally spoke up. "Claire, isn't that a bit harsh?" "Stay out of this," my mother snapped. I grabbed my coat and headed for the door, desperate to escape before anyone saw me cry. But as I reached the hallway, I heard something that stopped me cold. I stood frozen in the darkened hallway, my hand on the doorknob. Through the thin walls, I could hear my mother and Kenneth talking in the kitchen. They thought I'd already left. "Did you see her face?" Kenneth laughed. "Absolutely priceless." "I almost felt bad," my mother said, but she was giggling too. "Almost." My stomach twisted into knots. "The emergency contact thing was brilliant," Kenneth continued. "Really drove the point home. Well, someone needs to keep her humble. She's always had delusions about being independent." "Independent?" Kenneth snorted. "She'll be living in your basement when she's 40, mark my words." They both laughed like it was the funniest joke they'd ever heard. I pressed my back against the wall, barely breathing. "Remember when she said she wanted to buy a house someday?" my mother said. I almost died laughing. With her credit, her income, never happening. Exactly. She'll always be dependent on us. Might as well accept it now. Their laughter echoed through the walls. Something inside me shifted in that moment. Something fundamental and irreversible. I didn't burst back in to confront them. I didn't scream or cry or defend myself. Instead, I walked out quietly into the cold November night. And I made a decision that would change everything. The next morning I tried one last time. I called my mother, determined to have a calm, mature conversation about what happened. "Mom, can we talk about yesterday?" "What about it?" Her voice was clipped, annoyed. "You really hurt me. The things you said in front of everyone." "Oh, here we go," she interrupted. "Playing the victim again." "I'm not playing victim. I just want you to understand." "No, you need to understand something." Her voice rose sharply. "I'm tired of coddling you. Tired of pretending you're doing fine when you're clearly not. Someone has to tell you the truth. The truth. Or just your version of it. Big mistake. How dare you, she shouted. After everything I've done for you. I let you move back home. I helped with your bills. And this is the thanks I get. I'm grateful for that, but you're ungrateful and emotionally unstable. Kenneth was right about you from the beginning. The words stung worse than anything she'd said at Thanksgiving. Maybe I should just go then, I said quietly. Maybe you should. I hung up, my hands shaking. For a long moment, I sat on my apartment floor, staring at nothing. Then I stood up, grabbed my laptop and started planning. Not a confrontation. An escape. 3 days later a text message arrived. It was long. Detailed. Brutal. My mother had apparently spent hours crafting a complete list of every mistake I'd ever made. Every failed relationship. Every job I'd quit. Every bad decision from my teens to now. The message ended with one devastating line. Asterisk. You'll never own anything without me. The sooner you accept that, the better. Asterisk. I read it twice, my chest tight. My first instinct was to defend myself. To reply with my own list of grievances. To tell her exactly how wrong she was. Instead, I did something that took every ounce of willpower I had. I didn't reply at all. I saved the message, turned off my phone and went back to work. Because while my mother was busy writing essays about my failures, I was busy doing something she didn't know about. Something I'd been doing in secret for 8 months. I'd been rebuilding my entire life. Every paycheck I saved aggressively. I worked overtime whenever possible. I picked up freelance work on weekends. I cut every unnecessary expense. I fixed the credit mistakes from my 20s, paid off old debts, and built a perfect payment history. Nobody knew. Not my mother. Not Kenneth. Not even my closest friends. I worked in silence while they mocked me in public. And that morning something incredible happened. An email arrived that changed everything. I stared at my laptop screen, barely breathing. The email was from First National Bank. Subject line: Mortgage pre-approval application. Approved. My hand shook as I opened it. Asterisk, congratulations. Based on your financial history, credit score and income verification, you have been pre-approved for a mortgage up to $185,000. Asterisk. I read it 3 times to make sure it was real. Then I closed my laptop, walked to my bathroom and cried. Not from sadness. From pure, overwhelming relief. For 8 months I doubted myself. Wondered if my mother was right. Questioned whether I was really capable of this. But here it was. Proof. Official, undeniable proof. I was responsible enough. I was capable. I could do this without them. I spent the rest of the day in a daze, barely able to focus on anything. The pre-approval letter felt like a secret superpower nobody knew I had. That evening, I went to work for my usual shift at the restaurant where I bartended weekends. I was mixing drinks when my coworker, Tyler, approached with an odd expression. "Hey, can I talk to you for a second?" "Sure, what's up?" He glanced around nervously. "I need to tell you something. About your family." My stomach dropped. "What about them?" Tyler pulled me aside to a quiet corner near the storage room. "My girlfriend's cousin knows your stepfather," he said carefully. "She mentioned something that I thought you should know." "Okay." "Kenneth's been telling people you're financially reckless. Like actively warning family members not to lend you money or help you with anything." My face went hot. "What?" "Yeah. He's been saying you're unstable, make bad decisions, can't hold down jobs. He's basically been poisoning your reputation with extended family." Felt sick. Why would he do that? Tyler shrugged uncomfortably. "My girlfriend thinks he's trying to make himself look good. You know, like he's the responsible one protecting everyone from your bad influence." The pieces clicked together. This wasn't just about control. It was about Kenneth building his own image by destroying mine. "Thanks for telling me," I said quietly. "You gonna confront him?" I thought about the pre-approval letter sitting in my email. About the quiet progress I'd made. No, I said finally. Not yet. Tyler looked surprised. Really? Really? Let him think whatever he wants. Because the best revenge wasn't confrontation. It was proving them wrong so completely they'd never recover. 2 weeks later my phone rang. My mother's name flashed on the screen. I almost didn't answer. Hello. I'm having a family financial planning dinner next Friday, she said without preamble. You need to be there. What? Kenneth suggested it. We're going to sit down as a family and discuss everyone's financial goals. It'll be good for you. I could hear Kenneth's influence in every word. I don't think that's necessary. It's not optional. 7 o'clock. Don't be late. She hung up before I could respond. I sat there staring at my phone, knowing exactly what this was. Trap. Another public humiliation disguised as help. They wanted to dissect my finances in front of everyone, prove how irresponsible I was, and reinforce their narrative. Every instinct screamed at me to refuse, to protect myself. But then I thought about something. If I showed up calm, unbothered, and confident, what would that do to their narrative? If I let them think they were winning while secretly preparing my escape, who would have the last laugh? I texted back, I'll be there. My mother replied immediately. Good. It's time you learned how real adults handle money. I smiled at my phone. Let them underestimate me one more time. Friday night arrived like an execution date. I walked into my mother's house and immediately felt the setup. Kenneth sat at the head of the dining table with a laptop and printed spreadsheets. My mother sat beside him, looking serious and concerned. My uncle and his wife were there too, looking uncomfortable. Glad you could make it, Kenneth said with fake warmth. I sat down without responding. So, my mother began, we're doing this because we care. We want everyone to be financially secure. Especially those who struggle, Kenneth added, looking directly at me. My uncle shifted uncomfortably. For the next 20 minutes, Kenneth presented a slideshow about financial responsibility. Every example of irresponsible behavior seemed specifically designed to match my past mistakes. Lost a job. Irresponsible. Had credit card debt. Irresponsible. Moved back home. Irresponsible. My mother nodded along like a zealot at a sermon. Finally, Kenneth turned to me. So, let's talk about your situation specifically. My situation. Your income, expenses, debts. Let's put everything on the table so we can help you. The room went quiet. He wanted me to publicly confess my financial life so they could tear it apart. I stayed perfectly calm. I appreciate the concern, but I'm actually doing fine. Kenneth's smile tightened. Are you though? I mean, let's be realistic, Kenneth continued, clicking to a new slide. You're working 2 jobs just to afford that tiny apartment. That's not exactly thriving. My mother nodded sympathetically. We just want to help you see the reality of your situation. I see it clearly, I said evenly. Do you? Kenneth leaned forward. Because from where I'm sitting, you're one emergency away from financial disaster. My uncle finally spoke up. Kenneth, maybe this is too personal. It's fine, my mother cut him off. She needs to hear this. Kenneth pulled out a printed sheet. I took the liberty of estimating your monthly budget based on what I know about your income and expenses. My stomach turned. He'd actually calculated my finances without asking. According to this, you're barely breaking even each month. 1 car repair, 1 medical bill, and you'd be right back living with your mom. My aunt looked horrified by his tone but said nothing. That's why we're worried, my mother added. You're living on the edge with no safety net. And no realistic path to building wealth, Kenneth concluded. No savings, no investments, no property. Just paycheck to paycheck until. He stopped mid-sentence, looking at me strangely. Why are you smiling? I wasn't aware I had been. No reason, I said quietly. But Kenneth noticed. His eyes narrowed. Kenneth's expression shifted from smug to suspicious. You're awfully calm for someone whose financial life is being exposed. Maybe because you don't know everything, I said simply. What's that supposed to mean? I shouldn't have said anything. But watching him pretend to care while actually enjoying my humiliation made something snap. Just that your calculations might be off. My mother frowned. What are you talking about? Kenneth's face darkened. Are you saying I'm wrong? I'm saying you're making assumptions about my life without actually knowing the details. Then enlighten us, he challenged. The room held its breath. I almost told them everything right there. About the savings, the pre-approval, the progress I'd made. But then Kenneth made a mistake. You know what your problem is, he said. You think you're special. But you're just like every other financially irresponsible person I've had to deal with. You make excuses. You blame others. You. He stopped himself, glancing at my mother. You what? I asked quietly. Nothing. No, finish your thought. I'm just like every other financially irresponsible person you've had to deal with. Who else have you dealt with? My uncle's wife suddenly looked very interested. Kenneth shifted uncomfortably. I just mean in general. People I've advised. But the slip was there, hanging in the air. He'd been using me as an example. A cautionary tale to control other family members. Right, I said. In general. I left that dinner angrier than I'd been in months. But I channeled that anger into something productive. The next morning, I contacted the real estate agent whose card I'd been carrying in my wallet for weeks. I want to start looking at houses, I told her. Today. By afternoon, I was touring a small 3-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood 20 minutes from downtown. It wasn't fancy. The kitchen needed updating. The backyard was overgrown. But the moment I walked through the front door, something clicked into place. The living room had huge windows that filled the space with natural light. The hardwood floors were original but beautiful. The second bedroom would make a perfect office. This one, I said to the agent. I want this one. She smiled. Should we look at a few more options first? No. This is it. We sat in her car while she pulled up the listing details. The seller is motivated. They've already moved out of state. I think we could get them down a bit on price if we move fast. How fast? If you're serious, I can draft an offer tonight. My heart pounded. This was really happening. Do it. You're sure? I thought about my mother's words. About Kenneth's smug face. About 8 months of secret sacrifice. I'm absolutely sure. 2 days later, my phone rang while I was at my day job. My mother's name appeared on the screen. Hello. I need your bank account information, she said without greeting. What? Why? Kenneth and I have been talking. We want to help you set up a proper budget. We'll need access to your accounts so we can monitor your spending and... No. Silence. Excuse me. I said no. You're not getting my bank information. Don't be ridiculous. How else are we supposed to help you? I don't need that kind of help. Her voice turned cold. You clearly do. After Friday's dinner, it's obvious you have no idea how to manage money properly. Mom, I appreciate your concern, but I'm an adult. I'll handle my own finances. Oh, you're an adult now. She laughed harshly. Since when? Since always. You just never noticed. This is exactly what I'm talking about. This attitude. This defiance. It's why you'll never. Never what? I interrupted. Never succeed. Never own anything. Never prove you wrong. You're proving me right with this behavior. Then I guess we'll see, won't it? I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking, but I felt strangely powerful. For the first time in my life, I'd stood up to her without backing down. An hour later, another text arrived. The text was from Kenneth this time, not my mother. Asterisk. Your mother is very upset. You owe her an apology. Asterisk. I stared at it for a long moment, then typed back. Asterisk. No, I don't. Asterisk. His response came immediately. Asterisk. Then I guess we know where you stand. Asterisk. Asterisk, I guess we do. Asterisk. Three dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. Finally. Asterisk, your mother and I have discussed this. You have a choice to make. Either you accept our help and guidance, or you're completely on your own. No more safety net. No more family support. Nothing. Asterisk. My stomach dropped, but I kept my response calm. Asterisk, I choose being on my own. Asterisk. Asterisk, you're making a huge mistake. Asterisk. Asterisk maybe. But it's my mistake to make. Asterisk. Asterisk, don't come crying to us when everything falls apart. Asterisk. I didn't respond to that. Instead, I opened my email and found the message I'd been waiting for. My real estate agent had sent the update an hour ago. Asterisk. Congratulations. Your offer has been accepted. Asterisk. The house was mine. Well, it would be mine after closing. I sat in my car in the parking lot, staring at that email until the words blurred. They'd given me an ultimatum, expecting me to cave like I always had before. Instead, I just bought a house. The next 2 weeks were tense and strange. My mother didn't call. Kenneth didn't text. It was like I'd been erased from the family. But other people started reaching out. My aunt called, sounding worried. Your mother said you're making some big financial decisions. She's concerned you're going to hurt yourself. I'm fine, Aunt Marie. She said you're being reckless. Refusing help. I'm not refusing help. I'm refusing control. She was quiet for a moment. Is there something going on I should know about? I wanted to tell her everything. But I'd kept this secret for so long, I couldn't risk it getting back to my mother before I was ready. Everything's fine. I promise. After she hung up, my cousin texted. Then my uncle. Then my mother's best friend. They'd all received the same message. I was making terrible decisions and someone needed to stop me before I crashed and burned. Kenneth and my mother had launched a full smear campaign. They were telling everyone I was unstable, impulsive, heading for disaster. The old me would have panicked. Called everyone to defend myself. Desperately tried to control the narrative. But I was different now. Let them talk. Let them worry. Let them spread their warnings. Because in exactly 12 days, I had a closing appointment. And then the truth would speak louder than any of their lies. The calls kept coming. My younger cousin, the one who'd been at Thanksgiving, finally called me directly. What's going on? She asked. Aunt Claire is telling everyone you're having some kind of crisis. I'm not having a crisis. She said you're about to make a huge mistake. That Kenneth tried to help you and you completely shut him out. I rubbed my temples. That's not exactly what happened. So what did happen? I'm handling things my own way. And they don't like that. Are you in trouble? No. Actually, I'm doing better than I've ever been. You pause. Then why is everyone acting like you're falling apart? Because it serves their narrative. That's really messed up. Yeah, I agreed. It really is. After we hung up, I realized something important. The smear campaign wasn't just about control. It was insurance. If I did fail, if the house fell through, if I couldn't make it work, they'd already prepared everyone to say, "We told you so." And if I succeeded, they could claim they'd been worried for nothing, that their tough love had motivated me. Either way, they won the narrative. Unless I completely changed the game. I made a decision then. I stopped explaining myself. Stopped defending. Stopped engaging entirely. When people called worried, I said, "Everything's fine. Trust me." When they pushed for details, I said, "You'll see soon enough." The silence drove my mother crazy. 3 days before closing, my mother showed up at my apartment unannounced. I opened the door to find her standing there with grocery bags and a sad smile. "I brought dinner," she said. "I thought we could talk." Every instinct screamed this was another manipulation. But she looked genuinely tired. Almost vulnerable. "Okay," I said carefully, letting her in. She unpacked the bags in my tiny kitchen, All my favorite foods from childhood. Comfort food. Memory food. I've been thinking, she said as she heated up the stove. Maybe I've been too hard on you. I sat at my small table, saying nothing. Kenneth means well, but sometimes he pushes too much. I know that. She stirred the pot without looking at me. You're my daughter. I just want what's best for you. Do you? I asked quietly. She finally turned. Of course I do. Why would you even question that? Because it doesn't feel like concern, Mom. It feels like control. That's not fair. Isn't it? You humiliated me at Thanksgiving. You've been telling everyone I'm irresponsible. You demanded access to my bank accounts. I was trying to help. No. You were trying to prove you were right about me. She set down the spoon, her expression hardening. You don't understand what it's like watching your child make mistakes. And you don't understand what it's like having your mother root for your failure. I have never rooted for your failure. Haven't you? The dinner was tense and uncomfortable. My mother tried several times to restart the conversation warmly, but I couldn't shake the feeling this was performance. So what are you working on these days? She asked, like we were strangers making small talk. Work. The usual. Any big plans coming up? There it was. The fishing. Maybe, I said vaguely. You can tell me. I promise I won't judge. Like you didn't judge at Thanksgiving. She sighed dramatically. Are you ever going to let that go? You told an entire room of people I was too irresponsible to own a home, Mom. That's not something you just let go. I was frustrated. I said things I didn't mean. Did you? Or did you mean every word? She stared at her plate. Kenneth had been conspicuously silent throughout dinner, texting on his phone in the living room. Kenneth thinks you're planning something, my mother said quietly. My pulse quickened. What? He says you've been acting different, more secretive. He thinks you're about to do something impulsive. And you believe him. I don't know what to believe anymore. She looked at me with something that might have been genuine concern. Just promise me you're not going to do anything reckless. I wanted to scream, to tell her everything, to prove that I'd done this, that I was capable, that she'd been wrong. But something held me back. I'm fine, Mom. She didn't look convinced. After they left, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the dinner, my mother's questions, Kenneth's suspicious silence. At 2 a.m, I did something I probably shouldn't have. I searched Kenneth's name online. What I found made my blood run cold. Public records showed he'd filed for bankruptcy 7 years ago. He had multiple liens against his name. There were court documents about unpaid debts. Kenneth, the man who'd spent months lecturing me about financial responsibility, was buried in his own financial disasters. Everything suddenly made horrible sense. The way he'd positioned himself as the responsible one. The way he'd torn me down to build himself up. The way he'd seized control of my mother's affairs. He wasn't protecting the family from me. He was protecting his image from exposure. By making me the family disaster story, nobody looked too closely at his own history. I took screenshots of everything and emailed them to myself. I didn't know if I'd ever need them, but I wanted proof. The next morning my real estate agent called. Final walkthrough is tomorrow at 10, she said cheerfully. Then closing at 2. Are you excited? Terrified, I admitted. That's normal. But you've got this. Everything's approved, everything's ready. What if something goes wrong? Nothing's going to go wrong. 24 hours from now, you'll have keys to your first home. After we hung up, I sat with my coffee and let that sink in. Tomorrow. Closing day was surreal. I sat in the title company office signing paper after paper, my hand cramping from all the signatures. The real estate agent smiled encouragingly. The loan officer explained each document. The title officer notarized everything. And then finally they handed me a small envelope. Congratulations, the loan officer said. You're officially a homeowner. Inside the envelope were 2 keys. My keys. To my house. I walked outside in a daze, clutching that envelope like it might disappear. Done it. Without my mother's help. Without Kenneth's approval. Without anyone's permission. I'd actually done it. Sitting in my car, I pulled out my phone and opened a new message to my mother. I typed carefully. Asterisk. I'd like to show you something important to me. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. I'll text you the address. Asterisk. Her response came fast. Asterisk. What is this about? Asterisk. Asterisk. Please just come. Both you and Kenneth. Asterisk. Asterisk. You're being very mysterious. Asterisk. Asterisk. Just trust me. Please. Asterisk. A long pause then. Asterisk. Fine. Send the address. Asterisk. I did. My mother replied. Asterisk. This better not be another one of your dramatic gestures. Asterisk. I smiled and put my phone away. Tomorrow, they'd see exactly what kind of gesture I was capable of. The next day, I arrived at the house an hour early. I needed time to be there alone. To walk through the empty rooms and let it all sink in. This was mine. Actually, truly mine. I stood in the living room watching dust particles float through the sunlight streaming from those big windows. At exactly 2 o'clock, I heard a car pull into the driveway. My heart hammered as I watched my mother and Kenneth get out, looking around confused. They stared at the house with puzzled expressions. My mother checked her phone, confirming the address. Kenneth looked annoyed already. Whose house is this? I opened the front door and stepped onto the porch. Mine, I said simply. They both froze. What? My mother asked. This is my house. I'm the owner. Kenneth laughed sharply. That's impossible. Is it? I pulled the keys from my pocket and held them up. I closed yesterday. My mother's face went completely white. You're lying, she whispered. Come inside and see for yourself. I unlocked the door and stepped back, letting them enter first. They walked in slowly like the floor might collapse. Kenneth immediately started looking for proof this was fake. Some kind of trick. My mother just stood in the middle of the living room, staring. How? She finally asked. The same way anyone buys a house. Save. A work. I got approved for a mortgage. That's impossible. Your credit is actually pretty good now. Has been for months. Kenneth's face turned red. You've been lying to us. No. I just stopped explaining myself to people who wouldn't believe me anyway. This is insane, Kenneth said, pacing the empty living room. You can't afford this. Actually, I can. The mortgage is less than my current rent. But how? My mother's voice cracked. When did this happen? I've been planning it for 8 months. Saving every dollar. Working extra shifts. Rebuilding my credit. Why didn't you tell me? Would you have believed me? Or would you have found ways to sabotage it? She flinched like I'd slapped her. Kenneth stepped forward aggressively. You manipulated this whole situation. You let us think you were struggling while secretly. While secretly what? I interrupted. While secretly proving you wrong. You lied to us. I kept my private business private. There's a difference. Your mother was worried about you. No, she wasn't. She was worried I might actually succeed and prove her wrong. My mother finally found her voice. That's not true. Isn't it? You stood in Aunt Marie's living room and told everyone I was too irresponsible to ever own a home. You removed me as your emergency contact. You demanded access to my bank accounts. Every single step was about proving I was a failure. I was trying to protect you. From what? From succeeding. Kenneth's face was bright red now. You're being completely unreasonable. Your mother only wanted. I don't care what my mother wanted, I said firmly. This isn't about what she wanted. It's about what I earned. Kenneth opened his mouth to argue more, but my mother cut him off. Kenneth, stop. But, just stop. My mother walked slowly through the living room, running her hand along the wall. You really did this, she said softly. On your own. Yes. When I said all those things at Thanksgiving. You meant them. I thought I was being realistic. She turned to face me. I thought I was preparing you for disappointment. No, Mum. You were creating the disappointment. You were so convinced I'd fail that you tried to make sure of it. Her eyes filled with tears. That's not what I meant to do. But it's what you did. Kenneth tried to interject again. This is all very touching, but let's talk about the real issue here. She clearly. Kenneth, shut up. We both stared at my mother. Just shut up for once, she said, her voice shaking. You've been in my ear for months telling me how irresponsible she is, how she needs to be controlled, how we need to manage her life for her. I was trying to help your family. No. My mother's expression suddenly shifted, like she was seeing clearly for the first time. You were trying to make yourself look better by making her look worse. That's ridiculous. Is it? 'Cause I just remembered something. You filed for bankruptcy before we met, didn't you? Kenneth went rigid. That was years ago. 7 years ago, actually, I said quietly. Along with several liens and unpaid judgments. His face went from red to purple. You investigated me. I looked up public records. Same ones anyone could find. My mother stared at him. You spent months tearing down my daughter for things you've done yourself? That's completely different. How? Kenneth couldn't answer. He stood there, his mouth opening and closing, searching for words that wouldn't come. Finally, he turned and walked out. The door slammed behind him. My mother and I stood in silence, listening to his car start and drive away. I'm sorry, she said finally. For what specifically? For all of it. For believing him over you. For the things I said at Thanksgiving. For not. Her voice broke. For not believing in you when I should have. I wanted to accept the apology immediately. To hug her and say everything was fine. But it wasn't fine. You really hurt me, Mom. I know. And I don't know if I can just forget that. I'm not asking you to forget. I'm asking for a chance to do better. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw something I hadn't seen in years. Genuine remorse. This house isn't just walls and a roof, I said quietly. It's proof. Proof that I'm capable. Proof that I can handle responsibility. Proof that your opinion of me was wrong. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I see that now. I see you now. Do you? Because for months you saw what Kenneth told you to see. What you wanted to see. You're right. I did. She wiped her eyes. I think part of me was scared. Scared of what? That you didn't need me anymore. That you'd succeed without me and I'd be irrelevant. The honesty shocked me into silence. So instead of supporting you, I tried to keep you small. Keep you dependent. She looked around the empty room. But you did it anyway. Without my help. Without my permission. I shouldn't have needed your permission. No. You shouldn't have. We stood there in my empty living room. Years of hurt and resentment hanging between us. I can't promise things will be perfect between us, I said finally. I can't pretend the last few months didn't happen. I understand. But maybe we can start over. Slowly. She looked up hopefully. Really? On one condition. Anything. You see me for who I actually am. Not who you think I am. Not who Kenneth says I am. The real me. I promise. She smiled shakily. Can I ask what made you keep going? When everyone doubted you. I thought about all those nights working double shifts. The spreadsheets. The sacrifice. The silence. I kept going because proving you wrong felt better than proving you right. My mother left an hour later. We didn't hug or make grand promises. We just agreed to talk soon. As her car disappeared down the street, I walked back inside my house. I stood in the center of the living room, slowly spinning to take it all in. The afternoon sun painted golden rectangles across the hardwood floors. The rooms echoed with emptiness, waiting to be filled with furniture and life and memories. I thought about Thanksgiving dinner where this all started. My mother's cruel words. Kenneth's smug face. The laughter I'd heard through the walls. They'd said I was too irresponsible to own a home. They'd said I'd always be dependent. They'd said I'd never prove them wrong. I pulled out my phone and took a picture of my empty living room, the keys resting on the windowsill in the sunlight. For a moment, I considered posting it online with some triumphant caption. But I didn't. This victory didn't need an audience. It didn't need validation or applause. It was mine, quiet and complete. I sat down on the floor, my back against the wall, and let myself feel everything. The exhaustion from 8 months of secret sacrifice. The relief of finally being seen. The pride of knowing I'd done this impossible thing. Not because someone believed in me, but because I believed in myself. My phone buzzed. A text from my cousin. Aunt Claire just called me crying. She said you bought a house. Is that real? I smiled and typed back. Yeah. It's real. Holy crap. When can I see it? Anytime. Doors always open. As the sun set through those big windows, painting the walls orange and gold, I made myself a promise. This house was just the beginning. I'd proven I could succeed despite the doubt, despite the sabotage, despite everything. Now I'd prove I could thrive. Not for them. For me. I stood up, grabbed my keys, and walked through my house one more time. Each room represented something. The living room was resilience, the kitchen was independence, the bedroom was peace. And the front door. The front door was the boundary I'd finally learned to set. I locked it behind me as I left, knowing I could come back whenever I wanted. 'Cause this was mine. They'd said I wasn't responsible enough to own a home. Turns out, I was just responsible enough to walk away from people who couldn't see my worth. And responsible enough to build a life they said was impossible. The keys felt solid in my hand as I drove away. Tomorrow I'd start moving in. Tomorrow I'd begin the next chapter. But tonight I let myself sit with a victory. Quiet, complete, and entirely mine. They tried to keep me small. I'd built myself a home instead.